starting off with a little bit of discussion on the iPhone 14 and the design. We got a couple stories this week where we're locking in, it seems like, on the final design for the iPhone 14, or at least Apple is. There have been a number of stories this week giving signs that Apple is getting ready. According to Taiwan Economic Times, Foxconn has begun trial production of the iPhone 14 Pro. And in that report, it says that Foxconn will be responsible for the production of the Pro models, while Apple supplier Luxshare is expected to produce the non-Pro editions. Now, the story this week is that Foxconn has wrapped up another trial production of the iPhone 14 Pro models. Luxshare has not entered that trial production yet. But what this all means is trial production is basically, these are runs designed to evaluate the production process and potentially identify any issues that might come up, as they've changed designs and components and those sorts of things. So they're looking for, how is the process working in manufacturing, and do we need to make any corrections or adjustments to that process before we ramp up into final production. So it means they're getting closer to moving toward the final production runs of the new iPhones. And along with that, we're seeing some possible design changes that are being rumored, that the iPhone 14 may be slightly thicker, and that would bring about possibly not having a camera bump, which I think would be great. There is potentially a return to circular volume buttons, so kind of going old school on that, and redesigned speaker grills. So we've had the little holes along the bottom. This would be actually more like actual speaker grills along the bottom. I would imagine if they're making that design change as well, that means they're maybe looking to improve the audio system in this year's iPhones as well. So maybe we'll get a little bit better audio because of that. The biggest rumored new design element, though, is the move away from the notch for Face ID. We've been talking about that a little bit. There's been a lot of back and forth on what Apple might do, whether they would do a punch hole design or a pill-shaped cutout design, or potentially both. Currently, it's looking like most people believe Apple is going to go the both route. And in fact, this week, we supposedly saw a leaked image of the new punch hole cutout design surfacing from the Chinese platform Weibo. And then YouTuber John Prosser claimed that he had independently verified that that was an actual schematic, and that is the design that Apple is planning on using. So I find this very, very interesting. We've had the notch for so long. It's gained, I think, finally acceptance in the community, and Apple's even putting notches on Macs now. And now they're just going to change up the design language again and go with this new punch hole pill-shaped design. So I'm not really sure why. I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about the design change, if it's going to be better or worse than the notch. I kind of feel like the punch hole designs for me looks like you just have a blemish in your display, whereas the notch to me always felt like a deliberate design thing. This feels a little bit more like, hey, you just got some cutouts in the middle of your display. But depending upon how the UI and the interface works around it, maybe it will be better. I'm going to have to reserve judgment till I actually see it. But it's looking like that is going to be the new design for the iPhone 14. So I'm curious what you think about it. Do you think this is a good move? Are you excited about finally losing the notch? Let me know, maccast@gmail.com. Another thing we're hearing about with respect to this year's iPhone is potentially smaller and improved 5G chips that are going to be made by TSMC versus Samsung. Reports are saying that Apple is going to take advantage of TSMC's new 5-nanometer architecture for the 5G wireless modems in the iPhone 14, so Apple moving to their own modem designs. The chips would offer advanced performance, significantly reduced power consumption, and have Wi-Fi 6/6E support. So that finally coming to the iPhone. And this means that you're going to have better cellular and Wi-Fi performance along with better battery life. And since the components are smaller, that could potentially leave extra room for even more battery. So we're expecting pretty good battery improvements potentially in this year's iPhone. There are also reports this week that Apple is looking to diversify their modem suppliers, and this is according to DigiTimes. They say that they are negotiating with ASE Technology, which owns Advanced Semiconductor Engineering and Siliconware Precision Industries, to, again, produce those additional modems. So Apple branching out suppliers, which is more and more looking like they're looking at moving to their own designs, probably with this year's iPhone 14. And then finally, looking back at 2021 with respect to the iPhone, Apple's lead in the smartphone market in terms of revenue seems to be continuing to grow and expand. This is according to new numbers from Counterpoint Research. They estimate that Apple's iPhone revenue grew as much as 35% year over year in 2021 to $196 billion. And more importantly, their data showed that Apple had a 44% share of the global smartphone revenue for the year. So Apple, again, continues to take huge chunks in terms of revenue. So they may not have, the biggest, largest market share in terms of just phones and sales, but the profits are still in very, very, very many ways going to Apple. So that's good news for Apple, and I would imagine they're only going to expand that lead with the launch of the iPhone 14 in 2022.